Joining me is Liberal MP and former commando Keith Wolahan. Keith, great to see you as we chat every Friday. Your reaction to what you're seeing out of the Middle East, a real concern as these tit-for-tat attacks continue?
It's extremely concerning, and I'm watching this in real time with your viewers. And what we know when incidents like this happen is that it takes some time, maybe even the next day, to work out exactly what has happened and the consequences of that. Of course, Israel has a right to defend itself in reaction to the horrendous attack that we saw over the skies of Jerusalem recently. But we want it to be in a way that's proportionate and de-escalates. So I would imagine from here there will be quite high-level diplomacy to get both parties back from the brink, because that is the worst-case scenario for that region, is that the Israel-Gaza conflict brings in wider regional actors who have much more sophisticated weapons.
And those direct strikes as opposed to the proxies where we have traditionally seen the tensions between those two countries, Iran and Israel, normally, traditionally, carried out by proxies, whether they be the Houthi rebels or the Hezbollah group in southern Lebanon.
That's right. And there's another factor here which we need to consider, which is that the Islamic Republic regime is separate from Iran and Iranians. Right now, there's a regime that is running that country that is not liked by a huge majority of its people, and certainly the overwhelming majority of Iranian Australians, many of whom are in my electorate here in Menzies. And they want their country back because they are really good people, highly educated, who work hard, and we're so grateful to have them here. But when I see them and what they're doing here, I just think of the great shame that we have in the Middle East, a country that's not been living up to its potential, and it has serious, drastic consequences for the region. And I think back to the Women Life Freedom Movement, where the most bravest people we saw, young women standing on the streets, standing up to bullets. What they were standing for wasn't just about a better Iran, it was about a better world. And I think we need to get back to that and to help them in every way that we can.
And to bring what we're seeing in the Middle East and have seen over the last week back to a big story here this week, and that is the defence funding announced by the government. Obviously, it's a reminder of the importance of drones and missile defence now and into the future. Is there sufficient planning and funding for such capacity here?
There was an inconsistency in the press conference and the speech by the Defence Minister, where on the one hand he said we are facing the most serious circumstances of the last century, but then on the other hand said, well, we're not going to pay for that beyond 10 years. And the increase of spending of just under $6 million for the next term is just crazy. It is absolutely crazy. When you turn on the news like we are today and at other occasions, it is a very dangerous world, and Australia, its first duty as a government is to protect its citizens, and that has to be on a time frame closer than 10 years. And on that regard, the Defence Minister and the government has failed.
So in terms of this $5.7 billion additional over the forward estimates, you're saying it's not enough. Your colleague Andrew Hastie came out immediately and said you would be contributing more if you win the next election, more than the 2.4% of GDP committed to by the Labor government. Is that achievable?
He did, and he did it with the backing of Peter Dutton. And normally releasing policies so far out from an election, you know, it's not in your political self-interest. But we're doing that right now because it's in our national interest. And that's what we should be doing on defence policy, putting the national interest first. And I'm quite worried that this government, when it comes to foreign policy decisions, have got one eye on domestic political considerations rather than the national interest. And that just has to end.
Liberal MP Keith Wolahan, I appreciate your time and your analysis on the unfolding events in the Middle East. We'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Kieran.